Hi, I'm Rainer, and welcome to my train room. I've got a couple of projects that I started over the last few days, but I'm waiting for some supplies and some parts to come in. So I've set those aside, and I just thought I would try something that I hope is going to be a simple kit. This is Uncle Al's United Grocery Store. It's an old AHM kit. It says $15 on the box. I paid less than that for it. I can't remember what it is, but I got it for cheap at a train show sometime over the last few months. And from everything it looks like on the box, it looks like it comes with both of these buildings. I don't know for sure. I think I opened it at one point to figure that out. So I just thought I would see what it takes to build this. And again, like many of these cheap kits, it says, multicolored parts, painting not necessary. I will be painting it. Makes it look a lot more realistic. And I'm thinking, like, even these ventilation things on the roof are shown as green. I mean, they look like a couple of chunks of some sort of weird vegetable on the roof rather than a ventilation unit. So I am going to see what I can do with this kit. And most likely, these buildings are going to end up at the other end of my layout in my little small village scene up there. Maybe over here, but I'm thinking they will probably end up there. But I just thought I'm going to try to build them and see what it ends up looking like. The instructions, have no idea how good the instructions are on these AHM kits. It's got instructions for, it's just a drawing of how the things fit together, so there's very limited instructions. There are a little bit on the side here, but probably relatively easy to build. So I've got all the windows and doors here. This looks like a roof panel and the sidewalks. And this is probably the roof for the other building, more sidewalks. Anyway, there's two identical sprues of parts there. And these are some of the wall panels. They are brick, but I don't know if you can see it in the camera shot, but they're kind of a glossy finish with a faint brick pattern on them that really doesn't look very real at all. So I'm going to see how this works out. Hopefully this brick pattern shows up once I paint, but yeah, I'm going to do some painting on these and then see how that ends up looking. Two almost identical, no, they're identical floor panels or bases for them. And, some of these little ventilation things, they're not green, actually. They're gray in the box. They're painted green on there. Gray looks better than green, I think. And this is so there's a number of wall sections. I'll have to figure out what goes to what. I think there's enough parts here to build two buildings. And some windows, if you look at the windows even, you can see there's like a pattern on them, like kind of a spiral pattern of when they came out through the mold. They're not even perfectly clear, which is fine. So anyway, I'm going to go through this kit and figure out how this goes together and see what we end up with. So I have both of the buildings built up to this point, and what I did this time around was I actually glued the walls together and onto the base before I did any of the painting. Part of the reason I did that was because the corners seemed like they were maybe a little bit fragile, and the styrene got very thin on the corners, and I wanted to be able to glue them properly with the MEK. It's a solvent, so it dissolves the styrene together. So you need a clean surface that's not painted for it to adhere properly. And I didn't want to be trying to clean paint off before gluing it. So I decided to glue them all together, and I figured it was going to work on these because they're relatively small buildings. And so what I did was I glued them all together, and then once the glue had set, and this stuff just evaporates and sets very quickly, I then sprayed the buildings, all the outside of the buildings, as well as a little bit on the inside with a black spray can, just black, flat black primer. And then I painted the outside of the buildings with some artist acrylic paint, out of a tube. And with this one, I had a little bit more black mixed into the brown, and this one is a little bit more of a reddish brown. It's actually the same colors that I used. This one I just kind of mixed it a little bit darker. And the idea is that I use a brush that I try not to push the paint into the mortar joints of the brick too much, so the black kind of shows through, so you end up with this kind of a old dirty brick look where the color is on the surface of the bricks, but some of the mortar joints are still staining black. And it works for me for the kind of look that I'm going for these buildings. I've done this on a number of other buildings as well, if you look back at my older videos. And the window and door frames, the window frames and the doors, I painted on this one with a gray and this one like a dark blue, using some old Floquel model railroad paint. And then I glued those in. And on these buildings, the doors glue in from the outside, but the window frames glue in from the inside. But like I said, they're relatively small buildings, so it wasn't hard to do that after the fact, after everything was painted. So I did that. And then I glued the window glass in. Now, it came with clear acrylic for the windows, and that's what I used, but it isn't actually a very totally clear. It ends up being somewhat opaque. There's a bit of a pattern onto it. Ends up looking kind of like dirty windows. And because I want these buildings to be illuminated, I thought I needed to do something with the interior. And because the windows are not perfectly clear and you can't see inside clearly, I can kind of get away with not doing too much and not too much of a detailed interior. So on this one, I want to make it into like a little diner or a restaurant. And so on the bottom floor, I put some tables at the front. Then you can see it in these shots where I put the little tables in the front, and then I put a little dividing wall here with just an image that I found online that I printed with a color printer and put on a piece of foam core, and just put that as a dividing wall so that I can kind of, when you look in the windows, you'll see something. But because the windows are not that clear, you can't really see what it is back there. You just see that there's something back there in some different colors. So it kind of gives it a little bit of the illusion of depth and that there's something there. I didn't put a lot of detail inside. I just put a couple of tables at the front with some people sitting at each table, and glued those in. And then this floor here between the first and second floor is just a piece of white foam core. And I used two warm white LEDs, one that's glued into a tube that protrudes into the first floor to give some just general lighting in the front of the building. And then the other one is glued in the middle of this tube that doesn't actually go through, and it just makes it glow a warm white in the top. So it's not super bright. And there is one resistor in here to make sure that the LEDs don't burn out immediately. In this one, I'll probably do something similar. I'll just use one warm white LED. I found that I've done this in a couple buildings so far. If I put the LED in a white styrene tube, it makes it a lot softer and not quite as bright, the light, and it just makes it more of a diffuse warm white inside the building. So this one, I've printed out a little bakery sign that I found online onto some white decal paper, and I put that on the brick on the front. This one, I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do for signage yet, but I did get this onto this building. So I was just waiting for some paint to dry, because I just quickly put some reddish brown paint on the floor, some acrylic paint, just to make the floor not white. So this one, I'm probably going to put another person maybe looking out the window at the top, just glue it in, just so there's something to look at. And then I've got to put the roof on it, and it should be kind of ready for at least waiting on the layout for what I'm going to do in that area. For this one, I'm going to put a few details in here just so that when you look in the front window, it doesn't look like an empty building. Similar kind of thing. I've got a little background here that I'm going to just put back here just so that it looks like there's something when you look in through the window. So I'm going to do that and put the roof on this one and see how they end up looking. and then I will be placing them on the layout up there, and I'll show you how that looks. And then I've got to build a few more buildings for that area of my town or village up there. I already painted in a little bit of the street, so I'm going to be, temporarily placing these where I think they're going to go, and then I can work on some other buildings for that area down the road. I may end up using, these came with some sidewalk material that matches like this, and it was supposed to be going around the outside of the building. But what I might do is just cut it off square at one of the lines and use it as an extension of sidewalk between buildings, or to go out here and put another building up here so it all matches. So I'll see what I end up doing with it. But for now, I've left the sidewalk on the front of these buildings because I have two more sections of the same kind of a pattern that I can use to extend it. And I'm going to see if that works out for the sidewalk for my street. And if not, I may end up cutting these off and just fabricating one out of other materials. So anyway, the next thing I need to do is a little bit of detail in this building, and lights, and paint the roof for each of the buildings and put the roofs on the buildings. So that'll be the next step, and then get them on the layout and show you how it looks. So I got them both on the layout, and the roof is on both of them. The lights are working inside. A little bit of detailing inside, but like I mentioned, these windows are rather opaque, so you can't see a lot of what's happening in there, but what's close to the window you can see. So you can see some people sitting at tables at this one. In that one, you can see a lady walking with her bags in the store. So in this unit, I put an air conditioner on the roof. I had some detail parts separately that I got online at one point. It's just a pile of roof detail parts and other building detail parts. So I put an air conditioner on this roof. And on this one, I put an air conditioner, and being a bakery, I added some extra ventilation details as well. So things I still need to do to these is the roof details probably need a little bit of weathering. They just look a little too clean right now. This structure with the restaurant set up down there, I still need to make a sign for the front. I didn't get that done. On this one, I do have a bakery signage on the front. It's just a graphic that I found online, printed it out on some white decal paper and put it right onto the brick. I like how it ended up looking. Looks kind of painted onto the brick. And I think they're going to be staying here, maybe not in the exact location. So I've temporarily, with some black and gray acrylic paint, just painted the street where I think I'm going to have the street. I'm not going to leave it like this. I'm probably going to build it up with some acrylic medium like I did the road over here into my lumber yard. But for now, it's just there to kind of position things and give me an idea so I can visualize things. So for now, I think these buildings will be staying here or somewhere along this side of the road between here and the tracks. I've got a couple of my houses that I built before over there, and when you look up the street, you can see the church up in the corner. So I've got a few more structures to build that are going to go in this little village scene. And once I have those built, I'll know the exact location, and then I can build the street properly. So for now, I'm happy with how they turned out. Again, the whole kit, I probably paid, $5 or $10 for it. It wasn't very expensive, and I got 2 buildings out of it. And like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, if you leave it with just the molded colors in the plastic, they just do look like completely like plastic. But with a little bit of, painting and weathering, you can make them look a lot more believable. The awning here, I'm noticing right now, even though I kind of made it look dirty. It's still looking a bit too shiny for my liking, so I think I need to put something on there to dull it down a little bit so it doesn't look so shiny. But other than that, I'm happy with how they turned out, and hopefully, like I've mentioned in other videos, if you guys see these cheap building kits or cheap rolling stock kits at train shows, don't turn them down, because it doesn't take a lot of work to make them look really nice and to make them look a lot more interesting, and they can be a really good deal. So hopefully this is helpful to somebody. Not a really complex video, just a couple of basic, very basic, simple building kits and how I paint them. Thank you for watching, and see you next time. And if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe.